Hello, I'm back. My name is Angela, and this is podcast number 2. I have so much stewing, brewing, swirling in my heart, and I am not sure what I'm going to get through for episode number 2. But it is good stuff, I'll tell you that. So I hope that your week has started off well. I know that we are in a place and season of shedding. Shedding old belief systems, shedding old people, shedding old patterns, shedding old places. It's a costly thing. It's a painful thing. It's a requirement for growth. And that's where the separation comes in, right? Not everybody is prepared to come along with you where you're headed. And we're being shown who is prepared to come along with us and who is going to be, quote unquote, left behind, at least for the season to come. So if you understand what I'm saying, I commend you. I commend you. I have cried so many tears in this season of my life. And so much joy as well, right? So somehow tears go right along with joy if we just press in, look within, continue on the path that we know we're supposed to be on. So, as promised, I want to talk about Elohim, okay? And I want to get into the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And we'll see where we go from there. So Elohim represents the unity and wholeness of divine masculine and divine feminine energies within one divine source. Now, even more than that, Elohim is grammatically plural. So, multiplicity within unity. What does that mean? Well, I don't claim to know everything, but I'll share what I feel like I could or should. Jesus said it. Do you not know that ye are gods? And he was quoting the Old Testament, I'm pretty sure. Okay. And I kind of don't want to pull my Bible out. I just feel like it's not necessary. Legitimately. But he was showing us who we really are, which, in my opinion and belief that I have come experientially to know, is that we are all little pieces of God. Individually, God in the flesh, but there's a collective whole, all of humanity, that is one. And within each one of us is, I feel that, a perfect marriage of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and the two shall become one. Let no man separate them. We take this literal, while marriage may very well be literal, right? But within you, within me, there's a union beneath all the layers, all the trauma, all the worldly things. There's a union of masculine and feminine. Okay, so divine plurality and relationality within God. Okay, what this is saying is that neither one are superior. Masculine, feminine, no, they are both necessary to be whole. And here's the truth: we are already whole. Forgive the wind. It is very windy today. I believe that that is just a message, just to be honest. Because the winds of change are blowing. They really are. They're blowing in our hearts. They're blowing in our bodies. They're blowing in our minds. And if we just pay attention, which is something we're taught not to do, but if we just get quiet and lean in, we can hear what the Spirit is saying for us in this moment, for us in the time to come. Oftentimes, turbulence, we deem it as a negative thing, but it can be the very catalyst to push us into where we need to be. Yeah. So, one divine presence that fully contains, harmonizes, and transcends both masculine and feminine aspects of God. And I think of maybe Genesis 1:26 and 27, where it speaks of us make man in our image. Now, some people even believe that there is a plethora of creators. I'm not necessarily against that. I just don't know where I stand with that. And I feel like, part of my deconstruction and reconstruction is learning to hold everything I believe very loosely. And this has served me well, because I don't have to be right, and I don't have to have it all figured out. I don't think that we could ever really have it all figured out. So from here, I want to speak on, and I definitely have notes, because it's very important that I cover this with excellence, because I want to do justice for anyone who would be willing to lean into this information and apply it within themselves. I don't want to, like halfway give it to you. I want to be sure that it's valuable and that it's done with excellence. And that is something that has been definitely highlighted to me in the process of birthing this podcast. I've known about this podcast coming for a few months now. So one thing about me, if you follow this podcast, you will see I'm just like a normal human being. And I think we need more of those. That's really what I've come to know. We just need regular human beings. Just regular people. So we're going to start with core divine masculine traits. Okay, because this is where I feel like I'm supposed to start. So I am. The divine masculine represents structure, direction, protection, and conscious action. Like the feminine, it exists in all people, regardless of gender. And this is something that I think needs to be pointed out, because when we hear divine masculine, we assume a man. But the truth is that there is a divine masculine portion just as equal within me as the divine feminine. Now, there may be traits that are more feminine within me or more masculine within a man. Sure, I don't doubt that. And maybe that's the way it's supposed to be, generally speaking. Maybe not. I just know they need to be healthy. These pieces, this structure needs to be healthy. The direction needs to be the correct direction, right? Protection needs to be from the right heart. Conscious action, what does that look like? And we're going to talk about what a healthy divine masculine looks like versus what a wounded divine masculine looks like. And this is not to shame anybody. This is what I honestly believe, that we are all wounded somewhere. And we are all healing somewhere, or becoming more callous and cold somewhere. And that's just the reality. It's why you see the world the way it is, because we don't want to deal with our pain. We don't want to deal with our junk. We don't even know it's there sometimes because it's buried so deeply underneath years of regression and suppression and disassociation. And this is male and female alike. I see it all the time. So, foundational traits of healthy masculinity, okay? Purpose and direction, clarity of mission, knowing why you act. Discipline and commitment, consistency, follow through, reliability. Strength and stability, emotional steadiness, being a safe container. And this is a very big part of it. Masculine containment. And we're going to talk about that probably in episode 3. But it's important that we recognize the ways that we have unknowingly betrayed ourselves, all of us, whether you're a man, a woman, any gender you identify with. We have to be able to see through the illusions. So, responsibility and integrity, owning your choices and living by values. Protection and provision, safeguarding what matters, providing safety, emotional, physical, spiritual. So mental and energetic traits of healthy divine masculine, logic and discernment, clear thinking and problem solving. Boundaries and structure, healthy limits, routines, and order. Focus and presence. This is so important. Staying grounded in the moment. It's such a big one. Decisiveness, choosing and moving forward without words are hard. Without paralysis. And I want to pause there because I believe that this is something that male and female alike, many people deal with this freezing, where it's like you're not sure what to do. You don't know which way to go. You're not sure which choice to make. You don't know which path to take. And so you freeze. And I know that it is a trauma response. But people can get stuck in that place for decades. Yeah, people can get stuck in that place of freezing for decades because it is a coping mechanism when trauma is invited or experienced in your life. Now, I'm not an expert, okay? But I know a little something about trauma. Empowered divine masculine is leadership through service, leading without control or ego, courage and accountability, facing discomfort, telling the truth, action and execution, turning intention into reality, self-mastery, regulating impulses and emotions. And let's pause there and talk about regulating impulses and emotions. And if we say divine masculine, let's just talk about men and how men are made to be unemotional and how they are groomed to not just not express their emotions, but also they are groomed to sexualize women. They are groomed to move on impulse, to go by maybe what their body is saying before they've even processed the emotions behind it. But even more than that, they've not been given a safe space, place, or environment to be emotionally capable, to be emotionally expressive. And this is not something that is anyone's specific job. In other words, it's not your responsibility for someone else's healing. However, when a whole society has been conditioned to think about it. Men don't cry. What BS? Humans cry. Humans feel things. And so we are definitely transcending these old belief patterns. In this time we are. And maybe everybody is in a different space and place with that. But we're coming to recognize the toxicity of that statement, men don't cry. Because in turn, somewhere, we are expecting men to be all of these things that we need them to be without being able to be safe to express. And then things get used against them. Twisted, thrown in their face. It's just not healthy. And it also will not create healthy masculine. That's not the space for anything healthy. And I think no matter who you are, whether you're a man or a woman, you have to be accountable. And something happens when you choose to be accountable for your feelings, to feel your feelings, to sit with your feelings, to not run from them. You become the person you always were, which is a whole person. So we'll talk more about that. We will. So another empowered divine masculine trait is grounded confidence, quiet assurance, and dominance. Now this is outside of ego. This isn't something that has to be proven. This is just something that someone walks in. They have confidence. They know who they are. They're not ashamed. They're not walking in guilt. Okay? Healthy divine masculine core qualities come in relational expression. Okay? What does that look like? Secure attachment. And maybe at some point we'll talk about all of those attachment types. Maybe we will. Okay? Maybe we'll get into that. I had no idea what this podcast was going to be. But, it's the irony is that when I was doing my notes for my first episode, I felt like, gosh, I don't know what else I'm going to talk about. But before I even recorded my first episode, I already knew what my second would be. And now it just seems to be, going through these motions. So, relational expression of healthy divine masculine, secure attachment, clear, respectful boundaries, leadership through service, not ego, consistency and reliability, and the ability to hold space for others' emotions. Have you ever talked to a woman who was married to a man who just shut down? It's hard on women, absolutely. And the root of that problem starts with the man just shutting his emotions off, his own feeling. So the inner state of a healthy divine masculine is grounded confidence, calm decisiveness, internal authority, so he doesn't need external validation, willingness to face discomfort, strength paired with humility. I love that. Strength paired with humility. What a force to be reckoned with, right? So let's talk about the wounded divine masculine. The wounded divine masculine often comes from shame, failure, neglect, abuse, or lack of safe role models, not from being too masculine. Core wounds are avoidance of responsibility or over control, emotional shutdown or explosive anger, shame-based identity, I am not enough, fear of vulnerability, external validation seeking, power, approval, substances, sex, work. So the relational expression of a wounded divine masculine is control or withdraw, inconsistency and broken promises, difficulty with boundaries, too rigid or none at all, defensiveness, blame, or denial, and escapism, addiction, disassociation, avoidance. I know that it sure feels like I'm describing a good portion of humanity, which does something to my heart. Because if there was one thing that I longed for, it would be for people to walk in who they really are, to walk in wholeness, fullness, divinity in a body, to create heaven on earth in their own specific way. This is the new earth blueprint that I just long to see. So the inner state of wounded divine masculine is restlessness or numbness, chronic guilt or shame, power struggles, internally or externally, fear of failure or success, cycles of collapse, so self-criticism and avoidance in this big circle, never really getting to the root. So let's talk about a side-by-side comparison, okay? Healthy versus wounded masculine. Healthy masculine, self-discipline. Wounded, rigidity or chaos. Healthy, accountability. Wounded, blame or avoidance. Healthy, emotional regulation. Wounded, suppression, or explosions. Healthy divine masculine has boundaries. The wounded divine masculine has control or passivity. Healthy divine masculine, purposeful action. Wounded divine masculine, reactivity. Healthy divine masculine, steady presence. This is a key. A steady presence. It's not energetically back and forth. It's a steady presence. Wounded divine masculine is inconsistency. Healthy divine masculine is protection. And wounded divine masculine is domination or withdrawal. But let's talk about healing the wounded masculine. Because I know that's where we are. Within each one of us, we are healing. And that's one thing I realized doing this and experiencing all of the things that I needed to experience to even be able to understand, put this message out, know where to look. There are just as much divine masculine within me as anyone else. And there may be wounded places of masculinity within me that need to heal. But we're here for it, right? Okay, so healing isn't about becoming harder, like as a man. You got to be tougher. No, it's about becoming reliable to yourself first. So key shifts: discipline without punishment, structure without rigidity, responsibility without shame, strength without suppression, and leadership that starts internally. I feel like I have a pause or a lag here. Okay, that's better. I apologize. So, here's some helpful practices. Daily routines that support nervous system regulation. This is a big one. Your nervous system is your wealth. There's no greater gift that you can have than a regulated nervous system. Keeping small promises to yourself. Physical grounding, so walking, strength training, breath work. Learning to name emotions instead of suppressing them. And I think this is a really beautiful thing. Now we should give ourselves space. It's like putting it out there. It's powerful. And here's another way to heal the divine masculine that's wounded. Integrating healthy, divine feminine traits: compassion, intuition, rest. Wounded masculine often shows up as all or nothing thinking, avoidance, or harsh self-judgment. The healthy is rebuilt slowly through consistency, boundaries, and follow-through. Now, let's talk about the divine feminine. Not sure why we started with the masculine, but I just felt that that's the way it was supposed to be. So, here we are. The divine feminine is often described as an energy or set of qualities that emphasize creation, intuition, compassion, and inner wisdom. These traits exist in people of any gender. Commonly recognized divine feminine traits include intuition and inner knowing, trusting gut feelings, emotional intelligence, spiritual insight, nurturing and compassion, caring for self and others with empathy and gentleness, emotional depth and sensitivity, ability to feel deeply and honor emotions without shame. How big is that? How often do we shame ourselves for what we feel? You know, I'm just sitting here thinking of the fact that I've done this to myself. It's almost like feelings have been given labels of good and bad, but they're all actually valid. And there's no bad feelings. They all serve a purpose. Oftentimes to show us something, to get to the root of a trauma or a behavior that the spirit wants to heal, change, grow, uproot, replace. You know, it's like you got to uproot it before you can replace it, right? Creativity and expression. So creation through art, ideas, healing, or life itself. Receptivity and flow. Allowing rather than forcing. Surrendering control when needed. Patience and presence. Understanding that growth unfolds in cycles, not a rush. And I think that's a key for all of us, because I can't count how many times the Spirit has revealed something to me about me that I just wanted to immediately change. But what I realize is it doesn't work that way. I have to understand that I am loved just the way I am, even knowing that there's a better version of me coming forth. That's a powerful truth. When you can sit with you and know and give yourself space right where you are, knowing you're growing, evolving, changing. That's self-care. Yeah. Receptivity and flow. Allowing rather than forcing. Surrendering control when needed. Oh, I already read that. Wisdom and discernment. Knowing when to act and when to wait. I love that, right? Knowing when to act and when to wait. Connection to nature and cycles. Honoring seasons, rhythms, rest, and renewal. relational and inner strength traits, self-compassion and self-acceptance, embracing imperfections and worthiness, boundaries with love, softness without self-betrayal, healing energy, emotional, spiritual, or relational healing, grace under pressure, responding rather than reacting. And I think that this takes lots of practice. But there's a gift that's given when you can respond instead of reacting. It becomes a very powerful quality. Because the moment that I react to anything around me, I've given my power away. But when I pause and I sit with it for a moment, and then I respond, I've kept my power. I'm not leaking my power. This is something we're really going to dive into in the next episode. Yeah. So, sacred vulnerability is another relational inner strength trait of divine feminine. Openness without losing strength. So, the empowered divine feminine has inner power and confidence, quiet strength, not dominance, resilience and rebirth, ability to transform pain into wisdom. You know, it reminds me of the scriptures that speak about birthing. And I feel like that's, for me, what has been my experience. Authenticity, living in alignment with truth. And that's your truth. Because your truth is not going to look like anyone else's. There is only one you. You may, relate to people, absolutely. But there is only one you. And authenticity means seeking out the real you, buried under the layers that the world has placed on us all. I believe it's the real purpose of life. Magnetism. Drawing in what aligns naturally. So that's empowered divine feminine. Now, relational expression is secure attachment, honest emotional expression, trust balanced with discernment, ability to receive support, connection without codependence. And I feel like this is a big one, especially for women, but not just women. But there's this codependency that happens in relationships. And it's almost like we begin to feed off of the other person's energy versus governing our own soul. So the divine feminine, their inner state when it's healthy, is calm confidence and the ability to hold joy and grief simultaneously. Ponder that. Because that's a heavy statement. So let's talk about the wounded divine feminine. The wounded divine feminine usually comes from trauma, abandonment, neglect, or chronic invalidation, not weakness. Core wounds, in other words, the results: self-abandonment, prioritizing others to stay safe or loved, overgiving or people-pleasing, love tied to usefulness, emotional overwhelm, flooding, dysregulation, or numbing, fear of abandonment, clinging or hypervigilance, loss of intuition, doubting your inner voice or confusing fear with intuition. So the relational expression of the wounded divine feminine is codependency, difficulty setting or maintaining boundaries, seeking validation externally, attraction to unavailable or unsafe dynamics, feeling responsible for other people's emotion. And the wounded divine feminine's inner state: shame, guilt, unworthiness, exhaustion or resentment, confusion about identity, suppressed anger. Cycles of collapse is overcompensation and then collapse, overcompensation and then collapse. So let's just compare healthy versus wounded, okay? So you have self-trust versus self-doubt. You have compassion with limits versus overgiving. You have emotional depth versus emotional flooding. You have receptivity versus passivity. You have intuition versus fear-based thinking. You have nurturing self in others versus neglecting self. You have vulnerability with safety versus exposure without protection. And finally, healing the wounded feminine, okay? Healing doesn't mean becoming softer. I think this is a mistake that we often make, that I have made. Healing means we become safer with ourselves. Boundaries are not rejection. Rest is productive, not lazy. Your needs are valid and they matter. No is a complete sentence. You do not earn love through suffering. Softness and strength can coexist. And I feel like this is a love language of woundedness that has been given to many of us, this idea that we must suffer for love. Some practices that can help to heal the wounded divine feminine: somatic work, body-based grounding. Look up releasing emotions, it's very powerful. Inner child repair. learning emotional regulation, reparenting yourself with consistency, balancing with healthy divine masculine structure, which is routines, boundaries, and follow through. Wounded feminine often develops as a survival strategy. And there is no way that I'm going to be able to go on to the next topic in this segment, in this episode, okay? The next topic is we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about prostituting the divine feminine, and we're going to talk about masculine containment. But I want to end with something. I believe that one of the greatest truths about Elohim, about the fullness of God that we are created to be, is that we don't need anyone outside of ourselves to be whole. If we don't feel complete, whole, content, joyful, happy, not lonely, not needy, not afraid of silence, we will never be content in a relationship. We have been made to believe that it takes another person to make us whole. And that is the great illusion, and why so many marriages and relationships fail. Because if I go looking for someone to complete me, I'm never going to find that, because there's nobody who can. I'm already whole. I'm already complete. I'm already more than enough. And I believe that this lie is being dismantled through trial and error in our time. Because many of us have been through so much regarding relationship. So what am I saying? Elohim, God in the flesh, divine masculine, divine feminine, in union, in wholeness. Emmanuel, God is with us. And from that place of knowing, we become sovereign beings who can then create beautiful realities. And that's my hope and desire for every human being, everywhere, all over the earth. That's why I do what I do. That's why I am what I am. And only you can choose your sovereignty. Only you can choose to possess your soul. Only you can choose to no longer be the victim of your life, but to be the one who walks in victory all the time. No matter what you're facing, no matter what you see, everything serves a purpose, and you always have the victory. Till the next time. Love you guys.